What's a movie that made you go, WTF did I just watch? I have no idea what it is called, but I saw a Spanish film when I was younger about two brothers that are in love with a MILF. The younger of the two can't stop fantasizing about her squirting milk at him from her boobs. It wasn't a porn, just an odd film, but it stayed in my brain ever since I saw it. Another one I can't remember the name of was a trio of kids. Parents died, so they buried them in the garden, and the brother and sister started an incestuous relationship. It was British and very odd. Again, not porn. Starting to think my whole taste in films is a bit WTF. 2 movies. One bad, one good. Sleepover with my girlfriends in middle school. We watched a movie called Breeders. All I remember is, at the end of the movie, some women were bathing in a pool of alien CM. Saw everything, everywhere, all at once in a theater without even watching the trailer. Went in blind when someone told me I should. It was the best kind of WTF did I just watch? Noticing lots of A24 films in the comments. Makes sense, lol. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it and I totally understand why it is so critically acclaimed. It's also incredibly ahead of its time. That movie set in space came out before the moon landing and the visuals still hold up. But anyway, it's a really weird movie. The first 80 minutes or something like that is zero dialogue, lots of strange metaphors and imagery, but I definitely recommend giving it a watch. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Watched this movie at the theater with my ex-wife back when it was first released. When the credits began to roll, we both sat there for literally 2 minutes, unable to say anything. The first thing I managed to say was okay. It's a pretty good movie, but it leaves you feeling totally weirded out, confused and disturbed. In a bad way. The Last Airbender. I felt my soul slip into the void whenever the camera would zoom way too far in on a face and it just filled the entire screen. In a good way. Primer. I used to have a yearly ritual with my friends where we would get together, bring in some uninitiated, get wildly drunk, and try to figure that movie out. 10-10, no notes. Perfume. It has Dustin Hoffman in it, but it's about a murderer that's trying to build the most orgasmic perfume in the world by combining the natural body odor's sweat of all the virgins in the world. So he kills them, steals their sweat, adds it all together, then the entire town has an orgy at the end of it, and they show it. Worst movie ever. The Mist. At the end it's tough to explain, but it disturbed me to the point where I wasn't crying or sad, just upset and disturbed, wondering what sick mind came up with the idea. TW Death. Mental health. Kid dies, kid gets shot, just generally gruesome. Here's the scene and scene of The Mist. Warning sign. TW. Crimes of the Future by David Cronenberg. Surgery is the new sex. Growing new organs and surgically removing them in avant-garde art exhibitions. Chairs that look like jaws and chew your food for you. Beds that look like insects that adjust to your sleep cycles. Oh, and eating plastic. Body horror to the max. Upstream color. When I was a somewhat smug, pretentious philosophy student, I would have said that this was a good film in order to appear intelligent, cultured in particular. Fortunately, I watched it later in life and could see it for the incoherent, incomprehensible, self-indulgent crap that it really was. The first time I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, I went in 100 blind expecting a feel-good movie about a Chinese immigrant family. I just heard people raving how good it was and praising the cast and Ke Huy Quan. Man, was I ever confused once it started to kick into gear. Last Sentinel 2023. It is a film where happens. At all. Ever. I only finished it because I was so confused by how dull it was. I was there. There has to be some payout at the end to make all this worth sitting through. But nope. Mind-bogglingly nothing. Neil Breen. All of them. Granted, my girlfriend and I had a blast watching them on New Year. Don't remember laughing that much watching a single movie. The one we watched that time was the one where he had an evil twin with a beard. Goddamn masterpiece. The Room. When it started, within 5 fucking minutes I was like, what the actual fuck is this? I then proceeded to watch the whole movie, and now I force my friends to watch it. LOL. I did not hit her, I did Newt. Oh hi Mark. Meet the Feebles. About 13 at the time, so that added to the WTF-ness. But, it was still hilarious. A close contender, Felix the Cat. Again, same time frame, but this was on Showtime at like 2 AM. Oh cool, a cartoon. Wait, The Objective. It was mindfuck. I thought it was a CIA movie about the Afghan war. It was so much more. It was a CIA war movie that took place in Afghanistan, which involved aliens, ghosts in the Middle Eastern Bermuda Triangle. Any 4-hour drama film. No regular working class person has the time to watch something like that in one sitting. Lose interest halfway through. Eventually finished in 3 or 4 sittings over a week and lose the plot halfway through. Birds of America. I was expecting something like the whole 9 yards and instead got something weird that nevertheless I watched it to completion waiting for that conflict. The last scene was poetically apt for this movie. Downsizing. The previews made it seem like a comedy, but so was not. It was depressing and the ending was so bad strange I honestly don't remember the details, only that I was pissed off and wanted that 2 hours of my life back. I can only think of one movie that would have made me think like that. And that would have to be Cocaine There, even though it's supposed to be based off of a true story. I don't know how much of that is realistically possible. After watching Rubber, I questioned my life choices. A tire with telekinetic powers on a killing spree? It's like the director raided a garage sale, found a spare tire, and thought, this needs a horror movie franchise. I watch a lot of MS Deck and riff tracks, but the movie thinks. There are no words. Though at the end where instead of saying the end says you have just experienced things perfectly encapsulates it. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button was the single worst movie I have ever seen. I recall it having good reviews. Girlfriend at the time wanted to go see it and we were miserable the entire time. All of the early John Waters films with Divine or serious WTF. I recommend Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, and Desperate Living. A lot of people like Polyester but it never did much for me. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. How anyone can rate this film is beyond me. I bought it on DVD and smashed it with a hammer to make sure I never watched it again or anyone else. Movie 43 just. Yeah. Dude, where's my car? Although I laughed my ass off when I got older and watched it while Blaise Lamau. Sausage Party? The open house worst thriller ever. Fast and the Furious. Went in expecting a teen action flick. Left and immediately order $500 of unnecessary performance parts to turn my Ford Aspire into a 10-second car. Tripping balls on 2 tabs of the strongest LSD I've had in my life. Watched it on repeat the whole trip. Never did make sense till seen while sober. Swiss Army Man. Saw an interview with Daniel Radcliffe praising this movie and was not at all prepared for the journey it took me on. But I loved it all the same. Proximity. How has no one mentioned this? You go the entire movie thinking it's a normal alien thing but at the end the aliens are looking for Jesus, like WTF, The Green Knight. It looks great. But I found it odd that it was the second movie I saw that year with a talking fox. Prisoners starring Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. That movie was such a slow burner thriller, and once it ended, it was like WTF, but in a positive sense. Highlander 2. There should have been only one. My best friend at the time said it was so bad that even though I had paid for the rental, he felt cheated. Absolutely Pulp Fiction the very first time. Only movie where I remember wanting to watch it again right away because I was like, WTF did I just watch? Enter the Void. I'm not sure what I was expecting but it definitely wasn't a 2.5-hour DMT trip of death and rebirth. Strap in if you watch that one. A Clockwork Orange. Seriously, I can't believe they let that shit be released when it was let alone still be allowed to be viewed today. It's mental. I made it 5 minutes into Adam Sandler's 2012 film That's My Boy before turning it off. Clearly a middle school boy's poorly written wet dream. Only God forgives. This is especially because of a specific line uttered in the film. If you've seen it then you know which one I'm talking about. Grimacing face. For me it was the Matthew McConaughey 2019 movie Serenity, not in a good way, but just really confused how it was even made. Such a strange twist. Sausage Party. It was billed as a light-hearted adult animated comedy. I think it was a softcore animated porn with Seth Rogen and Salma Hayek, the one where the guy turns into a giant tarantula at the end. Still makes my head hurt. Latest letdown was Beau is Afraid. WTF. Thanks killing. I knew what I was getting into when I decided to watch it and it was actually pretty entertaining, but it was very stupid. The signal was pretty trippy. I feel like I need to watch it again and pay closer attention. The ending was very confusing but interesting. Woman goes on holiday and all the village look the same. Even the young lads look like him. It gets far more bizarre. I was going to write Clockwork Orange before I realized that absolutely anything by Ryan Trackharton would be even weirder. Try Romy View. Dr. T and the Woman. An ex-girlfriend wanted to see it and I don't think I was in the right headspace to understand what was going on. E.T. the Killer. I saw it in high school because people were talking about how crazy it is. Biggest load of crap I've ever watched. The Greasy Strangler. I can't think of any other movie that made me laugh so hard while at the same time want to puke. Bullshit artist. Dogville. I couldn't believe I was so engrossed. Excision. WTF, it's great. Beau is Afraid. Double WTF, loved it. Bad Milo. Sharknadoes. Tetsuo, The Iron Man 1989, Tusk. It's bad but good because it's bad and it's gross, and then at the end it's just a comedy, but only at the last 5 minutes. No One Will Save You. I liked maybe the first half, but the second half was too much, too experimental. Was pretty disappointed. Crank High Voltage. I was like, what the hell did I just see? And Killing Zoe. Most bizarre heist movie ever. Skinamarink experimental horror movie in which, after watching it fully, I can even start to say what the plot line was. The Holy Mountain by Jodorowsky simply has to be seen to be believed. A Cure for Wellness. It's been a few years that I've seen it, but I recall it being progressively WTF to the end. Lol. I love horror more than anything, but when I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood Honey, I was said, what the fuck is this? Kids made me both excited and scared to be young. Terrified of having kids. Killed my desire to have kids in the city. Mother, I thought WTF was that pile of wank? And yes, metaphor blah blah. It was still absolutely dogshit. Tenant. Me and my wife stopped watching midway and proceeded to have sex instead. 9 months later my son was born, smiley face. Midsummer. Having seen Hereditary, I was expecting it to be weird, creepy, and disturbing. I was not prepared.